Hello, I'm Adam Fry Pierce, guy from the emails, and curator of the forum. We've got mostly familiar faces here, which is really cool. So a lot of you kind of know the drill. What we do is once a month, because the forum has gotten so big, we meet in online spaces just like this, and we have a meaningful conversation for an hour. Sometimes it's kind of more of like a fly on the wall conversation between like just two cool, really cool people. And sometimes it's a really tactical level conversation where we learn how to do a thing. And this month, a lot of you wanted a part 2 of the masterclass that we did previously with Andrew LaMonica. So we asked him to come on back. And the part 2 here is onboarding for your next move as a design leader. A couple of you brought your team members. So if this is the first time that you're experiencing one of these, welcome. I encourage you to send us an email afterwards and just let us know your thoughts. We're going to be sending out a survey just to kind of figure out like, hey, did we deliver what you were hoping that we would deliver on? So with that, I will just go ahead and hand over the reins to our expert in residence, which is Andrew LaMonica. He is a former brand and design leader at GE, a personal friend of mine, and somebody that's been really involved in the design leadership forum really since we began. I'm sure that you've seen him around on the Slack channel or even facilitating some of the experiences or possibly presenting at How or Fuse or other conferences where he's not only part of organizing, but also a big part of influencing and inspiring. So that's it. Andrew, why don't you go ahead and take it from here and cover anything that I didn't, and let's just get this thing started.
Okay. So successful onboarding. Let's do a quick little overview. Onboarding into a new leadership role can set you up for long-term success or stall your career aspirations. Doesn't matter if you're joining a new team or you're scaling up your squad, smart onboarding, it's your playbook for a positive start. So this masterclass, we're going to give you a couple things. Big one being like a framework for successful onboarding. We're going to talk about insights for professional development and team productivity, some criteria for quickly adding business value, and some just tips here and there to how to accelerate your career trajectory. So some relevant background about me. I'm an executive creative director and global brand strategist, which I acknowledge, it's like a Game of Thrones title. It's super long. But I do a lot of work at the intersection of design, business, and leadership. I worked at GE, as Adam said, on the CMO's team leading global brand and design, which is one of the cooler asterisks in my career. Currently, I'm doing a lot of work with like Adobe, InVision here, Bloomberg, and the Olympics, as well as a bunch of startups. For those of you familiar with me, I talk a lot about personal strategies for creative leadership. I've given in-house workshops about best practices, kind of like these things. I've also talked a lot about the business value of design at places like NYU Stern School of Business and Harvard Business School. Helping companies understand the transformational power of design and what we do, it's really important. I also care a lot about like working hands-on with designers to get better at the business parts of our job. Today, I'm really glad to work hands-on with you all and share some insights about onboarding. So, thank you for being here, because that means it's important to you too. Okay, this is going to be very practical and tactical. I'm going to go through about like 100 pieces of actionable insights over the next session. But don't worry, you don't have to do them all. But if there are like a handful of things that make sense to you, or that you gravitate towards, or you think that can help, great. Adam and I did our job with these things. And if we are hitting the mark, tell us. And if we're not hitting the mark, tell us too, okay? There's gonna be 4 big buckets of information. First one, foundations for success. We're gonna talk about best practices, expectation setting, fact finding, how to engage correctly with your support network, and some relationship building. The next bucket's gonna be designing great starts. I'm gonna share insights about where most new leaders fail. I'm also going to talk about some common derailing behavior. I'm going to talk a little bit about humility and self-awareness and how they can help you with those 2 things, as well as building and establishing trust. The third one's going to be establishing quick wins. We're going to talk about like what they are and how to get them. I'm also going to share some productivity tools, which are just super easy and super helpful. The last bucket is sustaining awesomeness. I know it's not an incredibly professional title, but it's what we're working with right now. I'm going to share some strategies to keep the momentum going with some cognitive behavioral psychology techniques. I'm also going to close with a few influence and persuasion strategies, which, when we do these things, it's always a popular topic. Some quick guardrails. This is going to be a long masterclass. Not like Ken Burns' documentary long, but almost as dense. So at the end of each section, Adam and I are going to take a quick pause and just like level set with you and answer any questions you have. Like, we want to make sure that we are giving you what you need. Now, I understand that this could be like drinking from a fire hose. It's a lot of information. So at the way end, we're going to ask you to contribute some feedback. And when you respond to that, you are going to get my actual notes from today. It's like 15 pages. So you can take this material with you, like digest it at your own pace, and just make sure that you have what you need when you need it. Okay? Is that clear? How's that sound? Feel good?
Sounds
okay.
Good.
Great. Okay. Foundations for success. Let's talk a little bit about expectation settings. As you start onboarding, like even before you get into things, it's important to understand, like to understand the expectations and set expectations. So understanding expectations, especially like with culture, that's always a tricky one. Like, they're not written on some stone tablet somewhere, unfortunately. So if you are the hiring manager and you're bringing people onto your team, like, it's on you to onboard them with like the cliff notes to the culture. Here's how we get things done. Here's what's expected, so on and so forth. Now, if you are the one joining a new team and that info wasn't shared with you, or, I got a lot of feedback that sometimes this stuff doesn't exist. Here are some pieces of language that I've found to be super helpful. Ask questions like, okay, so what does success in this role look like? What types of people excel here? All right, what does the company value? And one that I'm shocked how much mileage I've gotten out of, it's just like simply, all right, how do things get done here? And when you give us feedback in the notes, I have an additional page of questions to get to culture expectations. Okay. This is also the time when you start to actually set people's expectations of you. So if you have to leave at a certain time to like pick up the kids, start that from day one. If you don't answer emails after a certain time, do that. Like, if you need lunchtime to be alone and recharge, like I'm one of them, like, just block your calendar. It's always easier to set expectations than change them. The next thing that you're going to want to do is fact finding. You're going to do some fact finding to fully understand the landscape you're walking into. I recommend going on a listening tour. Try to get the best insights from the right people, because the more information you have, the better positioned you're going to be to navigate the perceptions versus the reality. The types of people you want to get insights from. First one, the big one, your support network, which I'm going to talk about shortly. As well, customers, agency partners. If you're a public company like analysts or Wall Street, sales, any key heads of staffs. I'm a big fan of like cross-functional project managers, because they always seem to be really good at just having the POV that cuts across the entire company. Executive assistants, very good, like, because they know kind of where the bodies are buried. And the big one is like the natural historians. These are the people who have been around for like a while and just have like a ton of institutional knowledge. Some questions to ask them. Things like, all right, so what do you see are the biggest challenges this organization is facing, and like why? How do you think we got to this point? What do you feel are the best unexplored opportunities for growth, and how? And something relevant to your specific onboarding. Hey, if you were me, what would you focus on first? The next two questions I find incredibly helpful. I actually stole them from Steve Jobs. So when he was leading Apple and trying to fix Pixar at the same time, in order to get very deep very quickly, he would ask, okay, so what's working at Pixar? And then he would quickly ask the corollary. Okay, what's not working at Pixar? What I like about the effectiveness of these two questions is that, like, anyone who's been in an all-hands meeting knows that when like an executive asks, so how's everything going? The typical answer is, oh, everything's right, fine, we're all good, everything's right. What I like about phrasing the question that way, about asking what's working and what's not, is it will actually give you a constructive answer. Okay. So engaging your support network. Now, whether you're the one who's joining a new team or you're managing new hires, there's a common tendency for people who are going through onboarding to like actually want to go it alone. Don't do that. It's detrimental to you, and actually it happens enough that there are tons of studies on it. So just don't try to go it alone. There are no LeBrons, there are no Beyoncés. Solo acts have a much harder time being successful. So engage your network, leverage them, and empower them. There are two groups that you need to engage to have an effective transition. One is your immediate network, and the other one is your horizontal network. So your immediate network, it's your manager, your peers, your direct reports, and if you can, like the person who had your previous role. Your horizontal network are the leaders of the cross-functional units. That's your finance, your marketing, your sales, your brand, your legal, your HR. Like, those are the big ones. But keep in mind, like, every company's different. So identify the right departments that are key to the success of your job and just make new friends. And for the sake of time, I'm just going to focus on the immediate network, okay? So, your manager. Arguably the most important relationship. Some big things to identify when you engage with your manager are knowing what success looks like. Have a deep conversation about that. Ask them. Another thing that's helpful is to identify what their preferred communication style is. Like, do they like in person? Do they like calls? Do they like email, text, whatever? You want to know if they're hands-on or if they're kind of autonomous, like you do what you need to do. When do they prefer to communicate? Timing is really important on this one. One of the best managers I've had was not a morning person by any stretch of the imagination. So I didn't engage them until after 10, but it was really productive for our relationship. You want to understand your manager's goals, their challenges, their pain points, because very soon they're going to be yours as well. You want to clarify your responsibilities and the process of how things should get done. And I recommend, having that checkup kind of regularly. How are things going? What needs to get done? Just to make sure that I'm doing this right. And lastly, which is really important, what are their suggestions for how you can be successful? Your manager should be setting you up for success. Your peers. For your peers, you should get to know their jobs and how their role fits into yours. Ask them about the dynamics of the team, their views, understand their working style, get their insights, and regularly and actively seek their feedback. Your direct reports. With your direct reports, you need to get to know their day-to-day. Learn their likes, learn their dislikes, their strengths, their weaknesses, their interests, and their career aspirations. Ask for their input. And when they give it to you, actively listen. You want to try to identify themes of how you can help them and support them and make them more high-performing. And above all, encourage them. You're their biggest cheerleader. Now, for the previous role, if you can, if it's politically okay, get the point of view from the person who previously held your job. Ask for insights. They may help accelerate your onboarding. They'll have institutional knowledge of the projects that have transitioned to you, as well as the team and the culture. Now, please keep in mind with all of these conversations you're having, your relationship building. And this is something successful leaders do in general. You're leading with empathy, you're having dialogue, and you're actively listening. You're understanding who they are as people, and that goes a long way to building trust and credibility. A really interesting data point is that during your onboarding, when you build strong relationships, you can accelerate your productivity by 9 months and the retention of the team goes up. So lots of upsides to this.